On the show tonight, the Battersea boy, who's one of our greatest actors. He's Timothy Spall. Then there's the former club comic, who is now dubbed Wales' hottest export since Catherine Zeta-Jones. He is Rob Brydon. Also music from Brian Ferry and the silky smooth Raoul Malo. Now, it's safe to say my first guest meandered through life, becoming a lorry driver, a security guard and a teacher before drifting into broadcasting. Today, he hosts the most popular TV game show in the world. He's spawned lookalikes in more than 50 countries and inspired a new word, Tarrantize, meaning to create self-doubt in another human being. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Tarrant. Good evening. To Tarrantize, eh?
To make you doubt your own mind.
To doubt your own mind.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a word named after you. And tell me about these lookalikes, too, that have been spawned.
All around the world. Millionaire has now been sold to... It's something like 120 countries around the world. Yeah, it's the only game show that America has actually taken from Britain that, you know, because they invented the game show and they don't really like to admit that it came from Britain, that the Limeys actually came up with, you know, because it is huge over there as well.
Yes.
They don't actually quite say it's ours, but they don't like to admit that it came from Britain at all. I think this is right. It's the only game show that the Japanese, because they're rather strange Japanese, God bless them, but they're rather strange. And it's the only game show that the Japanese have bought from any other country in the world. And the way it works is that the makers Celador say to all these different countries, you must do it like this. You know, you must have the set, the music, the da-da-da. You must have a bloke sitting there going like that. And all that stuff. And they have to take the whole lot. I mean, the Japanese, given half a chance, would put sort of boiling hot lava down your trousers and spiders down your shirt away. Yeah. But they're not allowed to.
But what's the most unlikely lookalike that you've seen?
Was a very fat, hairy one with a beard, which I thought was very unlike me, in Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan?
Which is part of old Russia on the China border. But he's got the suit. They've all got the suit. They've all got, not this suit, you know, a similar suit. They've all got a suit like this. And all these hosts all around the world, there are several women doing it. There's a very good woman does it in Canada. There are several women. But they all, and I mean, when I was in Kazakhstan, I mean, I'd been out fishing in the middle of absolutely nowhere for a week. And I came in desperate for a bath, a drink. Actually, no, wrong order. Sorry, desperate for a drink and then eventually a bath. Or ideally, a bath full of whiskey. Did that and turned on the telly and it was like, oh no! And there it was. And there was this big fat man with a beard going... I was thinking, he's going, is that your final answer, comrade? That's exactly what they do. And all that... We take a break. It was all that stuff.
What's the reason for its success, do you think? It's been a massive success.
I think, actually, it is a freak. I mean, I've talked about it a lot. I'm a freak, but no, it is so absurdly simple, like all great ideas. And it is a great idea, you know. I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of it as a British export, if you like. 15 questions. The money starts at 100 quid. The money goes up and up and up, doubles up. 15 questions, you get £1 million. You are shown the answers before, you know, you decide whether or not to play the question. Now, you think about that. That is so essential. Because otherwise, why in your right mind would you risk it, you know? If somebody said to you, Michael, you've got £500,000, the next question's for £1 million. I'm not going to tell you what the next question is or the answer, but if you get it wrong, you lose 468 grand. Even you, Parky, Michael, deep pockets of Bray, would not. I know you too well. Would not risk. You would never risk it in a million years.
You'd be very unwise to get talking about wages and salaries, Tarrant, after what I did. So come on.
Right.
All I'll say is that the lad done well. But I mean, you're doing a book at present, aren't you, about, or compiling a book?
Yeah, about the kind
really
of... about the people.
Yeah. I mean, given that kind of tension and that kind of reward, it's a very rich area, I would think, for incident and anecdote.
They are just the most extraordinary cross-section of people. I mean, the key to it, really, and we never sussed this. When we started, we knew it would do quite well, because it was a good shape for a game. But we missed the sort of point, when we did the pilots and whatever, we missed the drama of these great big close-ups. You know, because you don't normally see that. I mean, nobody normally risks showing me this close, you know. You're not here, you're staying on the wide shot, very wise. But you do that to these people, and it's eyeball to eyeball. And the fact that, because the phone lines finance it, and it has to be completely computer random choice, people go on that show who would never in a million years get on any game show in the world. You know, I don't mean that unkindly. I mean, well, occasionally I do. But mainly, I mean, they are just the most extraordinary cross-section of people. Now, normally, everybody who does game shows in Britain, America, wherever, they have to be articulate, extrovert, quite intelligent for a show like that. Now, I have to say on Millionaire, we've had some incredibly bright people, some very articulate people, we've had some very shy people, we've also had some of the stupidest people on this planet. But it's true. And I mean that with a sort of warmth, actually, because you're sitting there thinking, this guy knows absolutely nothing.
What was the worst example of that?
God, how long have you got? I mean...
Just what?
My favourite, actually, is not actually a British one. I mean, there have been a few. My favourite is the American one. The Americans had several million-dollar winners when they started. I mean, an amazing guy, a tax inspector, that was popular. A tax inspector won the first $1 million in America. I mean, unbelievable. But he had all his lifelines up to number 15, and when they went for the $1 million question, he rang his father. He used to phone a friend, purely to tell him, hey, Dad, I just want to tell you, I'm about to win $1 million because I know the answer to this. I mean, unbelievably cool guy, and he was right, and he won $1 million. But the opposite side of that was the guy who went out on $100. I mean, literally did not know the answer to the first question.
What was the first question?
The first question... you wait till you saw him. He's here in the audience tonight. No, the first question was something like, what did little... what was he called to pull the thing out the pie? Little Jack Horner.
Jack Horner.
Thank you. Little Jack Horner pull out of his Christmas pudding pie or whatever. Was it A, a plum, B, a carrot, C, a 5-cent piece, or D, a blackbird? OK, let's play for $100. Who wants to be a millionaire? He said, I know this one, Regis. It's blackbird. And America being America, and he's going, well, you got 3 lifelines. No, let's play. I got, you know, whatever. And he could not turn him at all. Oh, and the whole of America stopped. I mean, like, horror. A few days before they had their first guy won $1 million, whatever, within days they had a man so stupid he thought that he pulled a blackbird out of his Christmas pie. And the guy went home, I mean, with nothing at all. Question number 1 went home. And America being America, they were in deep shock the next day. It was like the whole nation was, did you see that guy? Can an American be that stupid? But, of course, also America being America, he was then on things like Letterman. He was on all the chat shows. He was a national hero. And he ended up, and he ended up making more money than if he won $1 million in the first place.
That's immoral, though.
I mean, it's true. That is USA. True.
I mentioned in my introduction to you that you kind of meandered through life, didn't you? In your
Drifted, yeah.
Drifted,
yeah,
didn't you? Yeah. Why was that?
Well, I wasn't very good, actually. I never really had a focus on what I was going to do. I mean, I still don't. I mean, there was a long period when I was doing things like Tiz was, when my mum used to say things like, oh, well, dear, you can always go back to teaching. No, I couldn't, Mother. Don't be ridiculous. I couldn't possibly. You know, having spent 5 years with pies on my head and beans down my throat, I couldn't possibly pop back into a classroom and carry on being Sir. You know, that won't work, Mummy.
What was it like being Sir, though? I mean, you drifted into that, didn't you? You didn't want to be a teacher.
No, at all.
You'd been a security guard, you'd done odd jobs before that.
And I just drifted into teaching. I had a degree, so, I mean, that was,
yes,
you know,
in English.
I had an English degree. I had that. And I drifted into teaching in the East End of London, in New Cross.
Tough?
Yeah, and it was a while ago as well, a long time ago. It was hard. And I think they still have them now. It's what they call the Easter leavers, which means basically as soon as they can go, they go. And they'd had enough, basically. I mean, the sort of accident of birth where if you're born before January, I mean, you can go at Easter, basically. And I got them. They were the Easter leavers.
So
I mean, the sadness was that the bright ones could not really get through. The bulk of them are done with education when they're about, 10 or 11.
Yes.
And the system didn't really help them at all.
And where did teacher fit into all this then?
Oh, Sir? Well,
yeah,
it helped the fact I was 6'2", actually.
Yeah, I bet.
But it did a lot, you know.
Yes.
The fact that 1 or 2 of them were 6'8" didn't help me. Big old kids, you know. But it was a New Cross. I mean, this is when I used to sleep out in the minivan and all that.
You slept in a minivan?
Yes. As you do. I mean, it was during my teaching period, and I had a massive row with a then girlfriend. I did all that macho sort of, that's it, I'm out, goodbye forever, drove off into the night, got about 30 miles down the M4 and thought, well, where the hell do I go now? And I pulled in and parked outside the school eventually, sort of sulking in the park here, whatever I do, I'm not going back there to that flat, whatever. Parked up. I'd slept there. I was amazed by this story. Went to the common room the next morning, so 7:30, I had a clean up and a shower and whatever. I mean, they all thought I was very keen. And actually, I was just really cold and I wanted to come in for a walk. And I stayed like that for about 6 months. I mean, it was great. It was, I probably wouldn't risk sleeping out in a minivan in that part of East London now, no. But it was a splendid period. I enjoyed it. Well, I mean, I had it so sussed that by the end, I mean, my finest hour of that was when the postman knocked on my window one morning and said, Mr. Tarrant, 161 GLO, grey minivan. I'm going, well, yeah, I've got 2 letters. And you wouldn't get it now, not even first class. The letters are right. And they just sent it with my registration number on.
Did you ever meet any of your pupils?
Yes.
Later life?
I was walking down Oxford Street a while back, and there was a ladder and a bucket up against the front window of Virgin Megastore or whatever. And this voice went, "Hello, sir!" And I went, "Hello?" And looked up, and there was this, "You remember me, sir? Minchin." I was going, "Stephen Minchin, is it you?" "Yes, sir, that's me, sir." Now, he had his own ladder and bucket. He was one of our success stories, you know. he was a good lad. But he still called me son. He was a great big lad.
What about I mean, you were a public school boy.
Oh.
I mean, you went to a...
The surprise being?
Well,
sorry?
I'm sorry. I mean, I wouldn't have imagined that you were a public
What are you
school
trying to
boy.
say?
Were you a very pretty young boy? And it was
Do you know, I've never been, and I turned down Graham Norton, I've never been in a really gay chat show before. This is great. This is great. And you're a very attractive man in your own way, Mike. In a lived-in sort of way.
I actually just wondered that,
I'm very pretty. Where are we going
now?
now?
But you were. I mean, you were a very attractive young man. I just wondered if you were... And you were a fag as well.
I beg your pardon, hello? A fag? Yes, a fag.
Yes.
Just to clarify that.
Sorry, did I read it wrongly?
No, a fag is... It was a ridiculous system. You sort of... This is going to get worse. You did for the older boys. Now, hang on. Now, you helped them. You started this. You helped them with little jobs they needed doing. I don't know how to clean this up. You ironed their trousers and things.
Yes, I'm sure you did, yes. Yes. And were you soundly beaten as well?
I was, actually. For free.
It sounds
Costs a lot of money now, but in those days it was free. I was thrashed all the time. Now, my old school hate me talking about this. No, we never came down.
They do, don't
they?
they?
Thrashed me all the time.
Yeah. It sounds horrific, but I mean...
It wasn't horrific, actually. It actually wasn't. And you just accepted it. I don't think it did me a lot of good. I don't think I thought, well, I won't do that again.
Sure it didn't. It wouldn't do anybody any good. I mean, and the curious thing about it was that your parents had scrimped and saved to send you there.
They did. Scrimped and saved.
Right,
They
to
did
send
that.
to get whacked, basically.
Well, exactly.
It's
Well, no, you see, Dad. I mean, Dad sent me off at the age of 13. And what really cheesed Dad off was that I came home at the end of term. Because he just thought, well, that's it, I'll see you at 18, goodbye, you know. It really cheesed him off. He thought, why am I paying good money for you to come home every 3 months? That really annoyed him. God, that annoyed him.
Well, he's still around, your dad, isn't he?
Aye.
Yeah. And he's your hero.
Do you know,
he's your
sitting
hero.
listening to you, I start saying things like, aye. Isn't that weird?
It is.
Aye.
Was your dad from Yorkshire?
No. It's just strange. It just makes you go, aye. There's now Sir Queerers. Good team, Barnsley.
By God, they're very good
Very
team.
strange.
Yeah. But tell me about your dad, because he's a hero of yours, isn't he?
He's
He's
a
your
hero.
hero.
Best friend.
And he went through the war.
One of the weird things, I mean, he did, and he did. I mean, think about it now. I mean, I watched that Saving Private Ryan film last year, and the first 20 minutes of that is just horrific, like you can't believe. Now, Dad did Dunkirk and did Normandy, you know, D-Day 4 years later, whatever. Now, when I grew up, which was just after the war, but obviously the house was still full of sort of soldiers who come home and whatever, I mean, you found all the talk was about, you know, the war and whatever. But I did notice, as I got a bit older, I thought, actually, Dad doesn't talk about the war at all. He talks about soldiers and mates and whatever. He doesn't refer to the war. And slowly what you realise over the years as you get old enough to sort of pick up on it is that the ones who went, I mean, all these years, and Dad is probably my best friend in the world, and he and I have, you know, taken fine wine together and fallen over and talking about just about everything over the years. Dad has never, ever talked to me about the war at all. Any detail. I don't know what happened on those beaches. It must have been horrific. But the ones who gave it all that, when I was a kid, they'd been to places like 5 years in Eastbourne, you know, or Canterbury, or they'd been in the Pay Corps or whatever.
Yes.
They hadn't really been there.
Yes.
There's nothing glorious about war, obviously, and Dad obviously learned that the hard way, because then they went in 1944, and then went all the way up to Germany to 45, and then fought all the way up. And they must have seen, Dad must have seen, and his mates must have seen, you know, people around him just killed like that and maimed and whatever.
I mean, that was a very remarkable generation that your father belonged to. But it's I mean, that generation is dying out now, and I wonder if people understand what a generation it was.
No, and they were heroic. And there's that whole thing now about, we have seen so much detail, so much footage of war, and we think, why on earth would we volunteer to do that?
Well,
whatever?
precisely. That was a remarkable thing. It went willingly to war.
Yeah. And actually then, they didn't know. I mean, they sort of went out, almost told, you know, this is a war to go and fight, whatever. They didn't know then about the things that were going to happen.
No.
They didn't know about Auschwitz or whatever. They didn't know how appalling Hitler actually was. I mean, my dad wouldn't have known. He went off to fight the Germans because, you know, somebody told him that, you know, they were being...
That was
you
the
know,
thing to do.
Trying to invade the whole world or whatever, and in you went. But you didn't really know quite... I mean, even now, talking to my kids, you think, you can't really explain why we had to go to war with Germany in '39. Yes. But we did have to.
Yes.
Because otherwise, God knows what would have happened.
That's right. Now, let's finally just ask you, I mean, how are you going to do this job for this millionaire? Because...
And
I mean, you've got no...
You're after it. You're after it, aren't you?
Listen.
Now you've mentioned your minuscule BBC wages. You fancy it, don't you?
I do. I really do, actually. I mean, it'd be not see me off nicely, that
But
would.
your wages last you a long time because you don't like spending them. Yeah. So they don't pay you a lot, but you stretch them out.
This is a terrible lie. I mean, how could you... It's an awful lie to the British public. I'm renowned for my generosity.
Who by? Who has ever? See, Mary's laughing, she knows.
Can I phone a friend?
No, you can't. Do you know, I've never been asked that before.
Have you not?
Everybody, every day, and it's fun. You don't mind it. It's like, it used to be... I mean, in the Tiswas days, it used to be, hello, Chris, got a custard pie in your pocket? Go, yes, of course I have, you complete prat. You know? Now, it's always phone a friend. One in the window, oh, phone a friend, Chrissy. And they all think it's the first time anybody's ever said it to me.
Well, I imagine...
But you accept it. It's a... You don't ask many questions, do you? It's, well, you know...
I ask the ones that count. See? The trouble is that sometimes my guests don't answer them.
I'm so sorry.
Well, no. All right. Well, we've run out of time, but I much
Thank
enjoyed...
God for that.
I much enjoyed it.
I liked it when you called me pretty. That was my favourite bit.
Well, and we didn't get to the bottom of that. Again, you see, it didn't really... Well, the bottom of that, you understand? I mean, it was a question which I thought might, you know, make the tabloids, the red top story.
It probably will. Don't worry. You'll be there.
No.
Graham Norton is my love child, says Michael Parkinson.
Chris Tarrant, thank you very much indeed. Good time. Right, music now, and my next guest has one of the finest voices.